Hello, Dr. Rob.
Hello, Tammy, on this very cool evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and we banter. We had so Dr. Rob was one of the guests on Super Saturday Recovery Summit this last Saturday, and there will be a recording of it. You can reach out to me if you'd like it, but if you're already on the intherooms.com platform, you can find it on the Super Saturday Recovery Summit. But he runs a group there on Friday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific time and has a lot of people, and they were kind of consistently asking, how come sex was so much better when I was high? And so he talked about that topic. And so that will be recorded material that if you're looking for something like that, reach out to me and I'll be happy to provide you a link with that. But he did that on Saturday. We'll have the next Super Saturday Recovery Summit on February 20th.
Well,
So.
let me just say, since everyone doesn't know what that is, and that we volunteer, Tammy and I, to help create a lecture series on a site that's dedicated to 12-step programs, and that's In the Rooms. I have been volunteering on that site for 6 years, every Friday night, and I have about 200 people now, Tammy, that show up every Friday night because there's just so many questions people have about sex and relationships, and that's free. So what we're saying is, on the very same site that I volunteer on Friday nights, Tammy has been able to arrange this amazing series of experts talking about eating disorders and sexual issues and intimacy and couples, just all kinds of stuff. And so she will point you toward, probably in the chat, how to find, I think it's on our website, right? How to find those links to the videos, because we've been doing this now for, I don't know, no, longer than that, 5 months or so. So we
started in April of last year.
Okay, I'd have to count on my fingers. I think that's
like
probably
9 times. Yeah.
So yeah, that we have 45 lectures and we're sitting here like this lecturing. Anyway, we always try to offer free resources and send you to good places. And In the Rooms is a very good place for 12-step meetings and connection with all kinds of support. And we're sort of the same thing, only just for our issues. So should we get started, Tammy?
I was gonna say, speaking of our issues, but not our issues. Right. So, because that would be a whole program unto itself. So,
tassel of issues.
So the first question is, last week on a prodependence group with Natalie, she shared a quote from your book. We are all wounded in one way or another. No one makes it to adult life without some well-earned emotional and psychological battle scars. Some of us have more of these scars than others, of course, and that's okay. It doesn't mean we're inherently broken or unlovable. It simply means we are more likely to bond with people who are similarly wounded, because these are our people. What did you mean by this? On the face value, it appears to be consistent with codependency, and many of us who consider ourselves healthy and undamaged were surprised out of all the quotes in the books. This is what she shared. Can't say for what Natalie, but please, this is a great opportunity. Thank you so much for asking this.
Well, I don't want to go through the whole topic of what is codependence and what is that all about. Let's just say that I have a strong difference with this concept of codependency. And codependency basically says there is something wrong with me for being with you. There's something wrong with me that is the reason I picked you. And if I can just work out my own issues about why I picked you and what's wrong with me, then I'll either pick a better person or I will have redder boundaries with you, something like that. And the whole intention of codependency treatment understanding is to say that how I am acting with you is a direct mirror of the trauma I had as a childhood, as a child. Therefore, if I don't work out my own trauma, you're gonna relapse, or our relationship will go sideways, or my caregiving and caretaking will take over my life, something like that. And I came along and said, I don't think that's right. I think that partners love us, and they love us even though they're seeing the worst of us, and they understand that sometimes it's going to be difficult, and that doesn't mean you let go of someone, and they struggle to hold on to us, and that should never be pathologized. No one should ever prodependence. No one should ever say to you, what was wrong with you for hanging with that person? Or look at all of the things you did to make their addiction worse. Or you should have known better than to pick that person. I mean, why would you put the responsibility of the problem on the person who loves them? I just think we're incredibly loving, giving people. I'll answer the question in a minute. But I want to say about prodependence, I don't agree with the idea that when someone is struggling with an addict who they love, whether it's their child or their husband or their wife, and I'm talking about all addictions, could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be gambling, doesn't matter, and our issues. I don't see any circumstances under which that loving person should ever bear or be told that they are responsible for the addict's behavior. There is nothing that I could ever do or has ever been in my life or has anything to do with my past that could make you drink or act out. And no matter what our problems are, we may be miserable and they may be completely buried in my childhood trauma. That may be causing the entire misery in our relationship. That's true. But you could leave me. You could get a divorce. You could go find a therapist or play golf. There are a lot of things that you can do if you're unhappy in your relationship than simply act out and leave a partner devastated. So prodependence is a concept that supports love, does not ask partners to be in any way introspective as to why they picked this person or what's wrong with them for having stayed with this person, and simply speaks to love as the underlying reason why partners put up with so much shit, because truly they see the hope for who we have been or who we could be, and that's what y'all are holding on to. That's very different than codependence. However, she had a particular question, and that was from my chapter called why don't threes marry sevens? And so it really goes back to something I think Tammy started this off with, the quote you were reading, right? That came out of what this woman said. So there is no question. I mean, maybe you are fortunate and did not have injuries in your childhood that have negatively affected your life. But most of us have some variety, some different levels of painful experiences in our childhood that we are seeking to either avoid happening in our adult life or trying to figure out in our relationships in our adult life. If I have damage, if I'm struggling with closeness or community or caring for myself, and I'm talking about partners now. If I emotionally am a 3 as a partner, which means I have issues, I have problems, but they're a little worse than most people. I am going, and every woman in here knows this. If I have issues and I look, and I really do, not all of you women have issues, but the women who have issues get this right away. If you're an emotional 3 and kind of a mess and you're thinking, oh, I want that person who's perfect and great and everything I've ever wanted, you're going to see that 8, that person who really has it together and really is what you say you want. And you're going to say that person is boring. I don't want to be, that doesn't interest me at all, because you're not in an emotional place of feeling like you want to move toward that healthier person. You're not that healthier person. 8s meet 8s. That's how it goes. At the other end of it, if you're this reasonably healthy 8, that you're just gifted with genetics and a great family, and you're an 8, you would go out with one of us, and we're 3s and 4s, and you would say, oh my God, that person is so much drama. I would never see them again. So the reality is, who are we going to go out with and fall in love with? We're going to go out and fall in love with people that we have a similar comfort level around our issues. It's not that different than I'm going to feel more comfortable dating someone who speaks English because I would have a harder time relating to and growing and building with some beyond our eyes and our sex with someone who speaks Greek. So it isn't that different with our emotional lives. Some people have issues, and we are going to meet people who have similar issues because they're the ones that we're going to most relate to. They're the ones we're most readily going to fall in love with. That's how it goes. It does not mean, as codependency says, that you pick this person for the wrong reasons, that there's something broken or wrong with you that you have to fix, and then you can pick a better person, and that you should distance yourself from this person and learn more about yourself so that you can decide even whether you want to be with them. Codependence doesn't say any of that. So I believe it just says that people with similar issues are going to find people with similar issues so that they can, there's one more thing while I'm ranting on this. I believe in every part of my being that if you are an emotional 4 and you have various challenges and you meet another emotional 4 and you fall in love and you get married, or commit in whatever way, that you both as 4s have an opportunity to become 5s and 6s and 7s. And you do that better as a couple than you do it individually. I have grown much more as a person in so many ways because I am in a relationship with someone who had equal issues in his childhood and all that to me, but together over 20 years, we are sixes. And when we started, we were not. I do not believe with all the therapy in the world and all the help in the world by myself that I would have become a six. It is by pairing with someone who's similar to me and both of us being committed to growing that we both grew. So, Tammy, I have feelings about this. Can you tell? It did that. I hope that answered the question, but probably took a long time. Is there anything else, Tammy, since you are so familiar with these two concepts that you would say based on the question or that you relate to or people get
No,
confused about?
well, they get confused, and I can understand why. And particularly, this quote kind of out of context of, the broader chapter, I can see, but I really appreciate that you're like, this is not pathologizing. This is looking at, the situation for, what we believe it is and how we can grow together. Again, not making I always have you are an enabler, you are codependent, you are, and the pathologizing and wagging your finger, you need to go do your own work, and like you are messing up this other person. And we're going, no, we really want to help, have a healthy attachment that's supportive, that, like you said, the two of them can grow together.
But I do want to say, and I want to be very clear, that there is a difference between what is wrong with the addict and what is wrong with partners. We are the ones with the active problem. We are the ones that are out of control and struggling and don't have a good enough sense of ourselves to not do really destructive things. We are very broken. And you guys, not in the same way. Look, when you get underneath our behavior, what we've been doing on the surface, and we get underneath your anger and rage and hurt about what we've done, and you get behind that and look, to when that never was, most of your relationships have meaningful, intact, important connections that have always been there. So many wives, we run a treatment program called Seeking Integrity, and we do treat male sex addicts and male sex and drug addicts. And one of the most consistent things I hear from the men I work with, is this whole issue of how much they've blamed their partners and how much they've made it difficult for their partners and how unfair they were to their partners. But there's nothing wrong with the partners, except the fact that you've been abused, you've been let down. So let me try this again. Addicts in treatment need very directive, very containing, very structured, and lots of confrontation because they don't see the world the way it is, and that's what gets them into trouble. Partners need a tremendous amount of support and hope and education and understanding. You didn't do this; it happened to you. Okay, that is the dynamic of an addict person and a recently betrayed spouse. But when you get underneath those issues, those most immediate issues, not only do you share all of the joy and fun that you have shared, but I'm sure you both have a few emotional issues that come from your family that underlie some of the challenges in your relationship. If you could work those issues out, I'll give you an example. I am very controlling, and I want to handle everything in my life, in my relationship. I do the bills, I do the travel planning, I organize the help around the house. I mean, everything. And then I can do nothing but complain about how my spouse doesn't take care of me, doesn't support me, and you would think, well, why don't I just say, here, you do some of this? But you know the reason, because he never does it right, never does it the way. So this is a marriage. We are both crazy, right? I'm controlling and difficult. He's a little passive aggressive, but we both have issues that every single day of our marriage, we grow and we work on and we move forward. And because we've been together working on these things together, had we met 25 years ago, I would have been an active sex addict and he would have been the child of a father who was beating him. But 25 years later, we are two people who have grown together, learned together, and supported each other through the pain that we both shared with different experiences. So I love broken people who love other broken people because I think that's what it's all about. And no spouse caused or is responsible for any of the addict's bad behavior. However, it is okay to own that I got my own shit, you got your own shit. We probably landed with each other because we share some shit, but maybe we could make it turn into roses together. And maybe what you see in your broken partner is the opportunity for you to grow, because you can sense that you guys are aligned toward growth. I'll shut up, Tammy.
Well, somebody tagged in the chat, and I'm trying to keep all the questions, and we've got a lot of questions, but I think this is relevant. So a partner says, but lots of us partners don't believe that we came into these relationships with issues. These addicts just looked a lot better to us at the start of the relationship.
Yeah, that's not true. Here's the reality about having issues in this kind, and I'll just be really clear. It's not so codependency says, look back at your childhood traumas. Mom wasn't there, dad wasn't there. Go through that pain, experience it, see how that's playing out in your abandonment issues in your spouse. That's basically that. And we say, no, this person is reacting to what's going on and the craziness of what they're experiencing. And that's why they look like that. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the question, Tammy. I wanted to say something more to that.
It says, but lots of us, the original question or the chat question?
Right. So what is wrong with you spouses? You really, really, really want to know? I will tell you, and you can leave or come back, but this is the truth. Many of you spouses grew up in environments where there were things done or things talked about or things were problematic in ways that you just learned were how things were. There are children who grow up in homes where they're beaten 3 times a week. And they just grow up thinking, well, that's how life is. Every kid gets beaten 3 times a week because that's all they know until they learn more about the world and all of that kind of stuff. So if you grew up in a family that had a profound experience where we don't talk about our problems, we like to look good on the outside, we see difficult things going on in our family, but we don't talk about it with each other, we don't even bring it up, then I can imagine walking to in a situation where you would see someone, fall in love with and care about them, but like you did in childhood, just not be looking for those things. It's not deep pathology being played out into the present. That's codependency. I look at it more like, I was like all of us. I didn't see things when I was first getting to know them, and now I see more and more and more. It's just that those of us who had to survive growing up deliberately not seeing things in order to get through, we miss more than other people do. And we end up choosing people because we don't see some things about them that relate to things we didn't see when we were growing up. And that's a very different concept than there's something wrong with my psyche. There's this trauma produced something in me where I'll always pick the wrong person. If you read that last chapter of Prodependence, I say really clearly that codependent people are told, if you get rid of him, unless you work on yourself, you're just going to pick another addict. You're just going to pick another loser because you have to work on yourself. And I would say, you know what? That's true. You will pick another person who has issues. That's what you do. But make sure next time that the person you pick who has issues is already sober. They're already in therapy. You can see that that person in and of themselves is trying to get themselves from a 3 to a 4. That's who I want to be with. The challenge is when we fall for someone who's a 3 or 4, just like us, but we don't see, we're not ready to see, and we don't understand that we have to look at parts of them that we didn't expect were going to be as bad as they are. And then we're 5 years in and we realize that there were things we just didn't see that now are really important to us. Or some of us don't see them until they get thrown at us. So am I saying we have issues? Always. I wrote a whole chapter about it. And why do we have similar issues? Lots of reasons. But I will go back to, if I choose a partner who's on the way up, who tells me I've been struggling, this is what's going on with me, who I see really trying to be a better person. They're not complaining about going to therapy, or they're not whining about what their issues are, but they're very open to talking about them and working on them. Then I am attracted to and want to engage with that person, not only because they feel right to me, but because I like where they're going. How many people have you gotten involved with who you thought were terrific, only to learn that they were horrible? And why is that? Because they hid their horribleness really, really well. And what you didn't have eyesight for is that you might pick someone who was vulnerable. And what you needed to look for was to make sure that they were already headed toward healing. So I've said way too much about all that, Tammy.
No, I appreciate it. That was really useful. And we've got a whole bunch of questions. So we're going to change topics now. Hello, I'm a single male and still have sexual needs, but I often seek them with escorts. Does this make me a sex addict?
Well, great question. There are kind of two different questions in there. So sex worker, sex addict. So let me tell you how I would define addiction for, I don't know how old this person is, but I'm going to assume, probably not married, probably a little bit younger. So am I a sex addict? Who you see for sex, what you do for sex, the kind of sex you have has nothing to do with sex addiction. I can see sex workers, or I can go to strip clubs, or I can look at porn. I can have affairs. All of that may or may not be good behavior, may or may not reflect, great things about me, but it doesn't make me an addict. What makes me an addict are 3 or 4 things. One, that I'm obsessed with something, that it is the primary focus of my life. The most important thing to me, if I was you, would be, when am I going to hook up with the next woman? How many of them do I have connection to? Where do I go online if I need one right away? And I'm doing that and thinking about that and involved with that when I might be focusing on work or my education or meeting the right person or dealing with my feelings about a problem or dealing with my loneliness. By the way, lonely men who use a lot of porn or use a lot of sex workers aren't really dealing with their loneliness, because they have an outlet for feeling better and less alone. So the kind of sex you have and who you have sex with and how frequently you have it has nothing to do with addiction. Those are all different issues. What is addiction is it an obsession? Are you having consequences? Like someone was upset, or you had a problem at work, or you didn't have the money for other things you wanted to do because or you just really hated yourself and you really wanted to change, but you forgot about all kinds of consequences. So in third sign, you're obsessed, you have consequences, and even though you've had consequences and you know what they are, you just keep doing it. That is addiction. Your life has, and the largest way to say that is your life is less functional because of what you're involved with. Lots of people drink, they drink all the time, but it doesn't affect their marriages, their work, their family, their parenting. But some people drink who are passed out when they get home and are not available to their children. Some people drink and start drinking in the morning, whole different set of circumstances. So great question. I would not judge the behavior. I would judge your relationship with the behavior. But really quickly about sex workers. I think there is something about the man who chooses to see sex workers and not be intimate and not grow relationships and not work on deeper connection, because it's fine to go do that. I have no judgment. You can do it as much as you want. But my hope is that you're dating more than you're going to see sex workers, that you're working on intimacy with friends and hanging out and having fun with friends and doing things that are meaningful to your life. I hope you're doing more of that than you are seeing sex workers. I hope you're spending more money on the things you really could be enjoyed in life than you are on sex workers. To me, that would be kind of a sign that I have a problem, which is this is more important to me than the rest of my life. Go ahead, Tammy.
That was my biggest part of it, was like,
The second
and
part.
if you're just, if that's all you're doing, you're not connected. It's just, body function. So, okay.
And one more thing about that, and I know I'm being overly loquacious, and thank you, Tammy, but the person who's seeing a lot of sex workers, pardon me, the word I would have for that is control. That, you don't have to worry about it being abandoned. You don't have to be worried about letting let down. You don't have to be worried about leaving when you're done, or you don't have to worry about being rejected. You are in complete control of those circumstances. So that is a lot safer emotionally than it is to be with someone that you're getting to know, and maybe they'll like you, maybe they won't, maybe you'll make a mistake. Maybe they will. It's all a crapshoot when you're actually getting to know someone and date. That's terrifying. And what a lot of people don't understand about sex addiction is, especially your spouses are saying, I'm right here. I could be available to you. I could be intimate. We could be close. We could have sex. We are running away from that. We're not running toward that. And so the person who regularly sees sex workers is also running away from something. I'm just not sure what that is.
I actually had a partner that reached out and said that her male husband was having sex with his affair partner because he still needed sex and attachment, but he had been separated from her. And I'm like, she's right there for you. You're missing the point. So anyway.
Well, this is the hardest part for partners, by the way, is I was right here. I was loving you all along. My arms were open to you. And in fact, can I share a little story about
Please.
that? I'll be really quick. In treatment at Seeking Integrity, one of the things that we do is we have the spouses, the partners, write their words and experiences of what they had been through. And we read that in treatment. So when I'm sitting with a married man, well, I'm sitting with a bunch of guys, but I get this letter from that guy's partner or wife, which is about their experience, what they went through. You know, you did this to me, you did that to me, you left me here, you left me there. It's a very important part of opening the door to them really getting the work they need to get done. I'm trying to really get into this. Sorry, I lost my track on the question. There's something I wanted to say about the partners.
I tagged on to the partners. So yeah, I've already, that one's in answered. So it was about
okay,
the
hold on a second.
So,
oh, this is that. This is about the escorts? No, there's a third one. Sorry, guys.
no, I tagged on after that and said I had, because you're talking about intimacy and attachment and control and all that. And so I said, yeah, it was like I had a male addict who's not gotten help, and the partner is going, why
thank you.
You're having sex over here, but you're not having sex with me.
So Tammy, how could I live with you without your helping me with my Alzheimer's? I so appreciate that. Or my early senile dementia. But just like my grandmother, who used to look at me, and my name is Robert, and she used to say, Frank, Joe, Mary, and then she'd finally get to Robert. I think I've reached that stage. But let me say something. There's a question here about porn.
Well, are you ready for the next question? Because I felt like
no, I want to finish answering that question.
Okay.
I want to finish answering that question, but but again, give me tell me what the issue.
Okay, my comment was there's a male addict who's out having sex with his affair partner because he needs sex, and his wife has been separated from him, and she's like, I don't know what to do, and he's going, I don't care about what you want, I want sex. So it was and you said, and partners are sitting there with their arms wide open. Okay.
Thank you. It's been a long day. So I was sitting with one of our clients at the group at Seeking Integrity and recently, and we were reading one of the letters from a spouse, and she described the sexual issue that he had come to treatment for. I'm not going to give any details. In other words, she said, because she knows now, now she knows, and they've been married a while, and now she knows. And so she was very angry, obviously, about finding this out 5 years later, or 9 years later. Why didn't you tell me before we got married and all that stuff? But the most poignant piece of the letter really goes to your question and a lot of your questions, and pain, I think. She said to him, if you just told me, maybe I could have helped you. Maybe I could have helped you work through this. I wish you had trusted me enough to let me love you enough that even though I would have been hurt or upset or whatever it was, that I would have stuck by you and made this work because I love you and I want you to get better. But by denying me the truth and hiding behind your secrets, you left out an opportunity years ago for us to get so much closer. And now you've left me with this atom bomb in my life. And I hope that's useful, Tammy. I really wanted to get that out. So thank you so much. And I think we should move on.
Okay, that was worth the wait. Okay, next question. Love addict here. So some people were my drug of choice. Now with being in recovery and changing because of it, suddenly many people have left my life, their choice or my choice or a slow distancing. I'm alone using a lot of online resources. Is this common with recovery from being addicted to love and people and relationships? And they add PS, I know it must be common, but how do I cope? This is the question. How do I?
So what do you think they mean by, is this using a lot of online resources? What do you think that means?
I think like this type of thing. So I think they're connecting with online resources, but feeling really, I'm alone, I'm alone because people have left my life, their choice, my choice. How do I build connections and healthy relationships when people were my addiction?
Well, if you're a woman, make some women friends who you're not sexually attracted to. And if you're a man, make some male friends you're not sexually attracted to, because the best place to start without worrying about your love addiction coming up is with someone you're not particularly attracted to, but you really, and this, we have a term, I think the video is coming up somewhere because it was talked about recently, I know with our clients, this term mother hunger. And I think, in fact, Tammy, you nodded your head so much. Say something about that because you hear about that all the time.
Well, I did. So Kelly McDaniel was on Super Saturday Recovery Summit. I did put the video link in the chat. And will be happy to share it with people. Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. But that video won't be posted till later this week. But Kelly McDaniel wrote a book about mother hunger, and she talks more about it for females, but she did address it with males as well. So, but that hole in your soul, that wound, from that experience of wanting to connect, for a mother, that wasn't available for whatever reasons, like you talked about a little bit ago, whether, it's addiction or you just didn't have the capacity to do so. So, but she's found that that's really at, so much of the root of an addiction issue.
I wanted to add something to this question, if you don't mind, is that I know that we dismiss something that goes in our lives every day, and we get so used to it that we forget to include it. But we're all very alone right now. All of us. People say to me, and they still say it, what do you do tonight? And I have to keep myself from being sarcastic and saying, well, let's see, I'm going out to dinner, and then I'm going to have fun with friends, and then we're going to the theater, and afterwards we're going to have a drink. It's like, we're all lonely. I long for so many friends, for so many connections, how much I would like to go to a real live support group instead of sitting in these rooms. And I love, and we support and do so much online for people. I hope that you get contact to all the things that we make available to you for free. But I'd like to hug someone other than my husband. And if I were alone and single, I can only imagine what a difficult time this would be. So where are you going to find people? Online. How are you going to connect online? And I have friends who are trying to figure out, how do I date during COVID? And, I don't know if you know this, Tammy, but I'm not sure who it was. It was Esther Perel or one of those famous sexologists wrote, I'm sure it was Esther Perel. And she wrote about, oh no, it was Helen Fisher. It was Dr. Helen Fisher. I did a podcast with her. That's how I remember this coming up. And she talked about dating during COVID was actually a tremendous gift, because if you were respecting health laws or common sense health, then you actually really have to get to know someone. You can't just run over their house. You don't know if they went out today. And so you are forced to have to spend at least enough time in this situation to really know their lives and what they're doing before you might even go over and sit on the lawn and talk to them, So it's interesting that the point of slowing down is really what it's all about. I think it's great that you're checking in with people, unless you're sexting and and you're gotten to that place, which, of course, is going to be a problem for all the folks here.
Okay, next question. I'm an SA 1 year, 8 months sober. Yay. After full but difficult disclosure, married 28 years and working on it. I truly take full responsibility for my action and know, although can't imagine the pain I have caused. My wife still has severe anger and sadness, and I really want to help her with it, but she still feels I'm still not giving her enough honesty. I have slipped on my outer circle, but never middle core one. I have admitted it, but it took me a month to do so. How can I help her more? She won't seek help or only tried it and was unhappy with it.
Well, I wrote a book about this. I think it's just the best place to start. You have to understand, I've worked with unfaithful men and couples that are devastated by infidelity for over 25 years. So I've seen an awful lot of people try to heal broken relationships. And I'm a huge fan of healing broken relationships. It's probably a lot of what my beliefs are about, if there's not too much abuse. But I have, in 25 years of watching men cheat, addiction, infidelity, whatever it was, one affair, I have never, ever yet, and I mean 100%, ever seen a man understand what it takes to heal the wound of betrayal in a woman. I've seen men give flowers. I've seen them give candy. I've seen them give expensive gifts. I've seen them, walk around with their tail between their legs for a month or two. But 90% of us within about 3 or 4 months start looking up and saying, why am I still getting that angry face? And how come you're not more cheerful with me? And, is this ever going to end? Or, and of course, why are we like that? Because we're ready for it to end and we're not getting what we want. So what I wanted to write about is all the humility and the vulnerability and the lack of control we have to have if we really, really are willing to show the people that we said we cared about that we do. And I say throughout the book, you can get off at any time. You don't have to be on this ride. You can decide that you don't want to do the hard work of restoring a relationship that where you've caused great harm. But if you do, it is a day in and day out commitment to living differently, to acting differently. And even then, your angry partner may not compliment, notice, or appreciate it, not for a long time, because she or he may be angry for 18 months. In fact, you might be acting better and they're going to say, well, you're just acting that way to make me feel better. So you're showing up for yourself and doing what you need to do. And I would really, really read out of the Doghouse, probably will set things right. Hey, Tammy, I wanted to say one more thing, because I hear this all the time. The guys are like, I'm trying everything I can to help my spouse know how responsible I am because something bad happened. And I ask what they're doing, and they say, well, I'm constantly apologizing and I'm constantly giving them more information. And I just keep asking them for forgiveness. And and I just think, well, how many more things could you do to try to destroy your relationship? You hurt somebody a month ago, 3 months ago, last week, and it's barely sunk in for them. And already you want to apologize. They don't even know what you're apologizing for, because it's just happened to them. So for so many reasons, guys, please, ladies, do yourself a favor. Don't say I'm sorry. Don't say I didn't mean it. Don't say if I'd known I was an addict, I never would have done that. Don't say if you knew how much I loved you underneath. Don't do any of that, because every time you do, the partners say, wow, they don't get where I'm at all. They're just trying to manipulate me. What can you do? Show that you're working on yourself. That is what you could do. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent. I know. Go ahead, Tammy. Redirect
I was
me.
going to say, also don't say it didn't mean anything. That one's one. I hear that, well, it didn't really mean anything. And I'm like, yes, it did.
Well, it meant enough for you to put everything in your life on the line, your family, your kids, your whatever. So I guess it meant something.
Okay, next question. Can you differentiate the different ways love addict is used? When it's sex and love addicts, it seems to mean an actual addict to fantasy versions of relationships, but I see many times it's used to mean an anxiously attached person or something like codependent.
Sure. So I've been around this, I've been on this rodeo a few times. And I remember when I graduated from sex addict to love addict. And I do think for some of us that, for sure, love addiction is a step up from sex addiction. Sex addiction is very cold, very unfeeling. And it's because what I want you for is your body parts. I want you, the person I see with these boobs or that butt or this, whatever. I want to know that I can have that. And those body parts being desired by the way that person looks, and getting control over them by being sexual with them, whoever they are, is going to make me feel powerful and safe. So really, sex addiction is about objectifying the physical parts of other people and thinking that by having control over them and getting you to desire whatever it is that you're going to feel wanted or desired or better about yourself. Love addiction is graduate school for sex addicts. I'm no longer objectifying body parts. I'm just fully objectifying people. So what that means is, like all of us as a love addict, I have a lot of needs. I have a lot of unfulfilled needs from growing up. I'm a very needful person. You might say many times I found myself kind of falling for the wrong person or getting more involved than I meant to. Why is that? Because you have a lot of need, and sometimes that need becomes the more important thing than what's really going on. So what do love addicts do? They see someone who might have the possibility of filling all this emptiness and sadness that they have inside up. Like, you're the key to my lock and you're going to make me feel better because you're in my life, period. And And it doesn't matter to the love addict who that person really is. It's getting bonded to that person as quickly as possible and being able to experience all this attention and love the way they want it. The problem is they don't really see the other person for who they are. The love addict is so invested in wanting to get this thing for themselves, this feeling of whatever, just like the sex addict, whatever that sex does for the sex addict, which is to fill some hole in their soul. The love addict is also looking for a person to fit into, well, it doesn't matter whether they're square or round, but they're going to fit them into that emptiness inside of them, and that will make them feel better. The problem is that I might say to Tammy, if I was single, oh, Tammy, I met this person. They're so great. And I think we share so much. And, I really like how we look each other in the moonlight and we have great talks. And, oh, I did tell you that she's a heroin addict, but she's really working on that really well. And she's only living with her ex-husband, but I'm sure they're going to leave each other soon. And it's like, I don't see that part. As a love addict, what I'm invested in is what I get from them. And so later on, which is going to happen, you start to see who they are. And for the love addict, 9 times out of 10, it isn't who you wanted them to be. They're a real person, and they don't act toward you all the time you would have wanted. And they disappoint you in this way. And so we become angry at them or devalue them or push them away because they're not the person who made us feel the way we want to feel. That's love addiction. It's a distortion that love is somehow how someone makes me feel, how it makes me feel, rather than love being about knowing you and experiencing you and how I feel about you. So moving beyond love addiction is really being curious about who is that person and what's going on with them. They make me feel great, terrific. That means I can sit for an hour learning about them. The feelings in the heart are a doorway, but what we do after, defines what's going to work or not. I'll give you one more metaphor. And Tammy, I know how many questions we have, and all I can
all
ask.
Good. We can only get through the ones we get through.
No,
and
but this is what I ask is write us these questions. I will answer them, or come back on Friday. It's just sometimes I have to get out larger concepts to you guys. So actually, we're in that vein. Why don't we move on? Because I want to answer more questions.
Okay, because you said I have one more thing to say about that, but
it's okay. I decided to not say it. I said enough.
Okay. I'm the addict and have been in treatment for 1.5 years with a CSAT. My spouse and I started reading out of the Doghouse together. What would you suggest to help us? I feel stuck, probably because I lied and deceived her, and I don't know what to do. Things are not progressing. It's been over 2 years since D-Day.
Well, this person's been through treatment. So they've been to some, no, I
don't know. Just with the CSAT.
Oh,
so this has been outpatient. So this is the 50 minutes a week,
So they've been in individual therapy, which is a logical place to start, some 12 steps, some therapy, maybe a group. So they've been working on this for 1.5 years with a therapist. And then they started reading the Doghouse, which I don't suggest you read with your spouse, by the way. I think it's something your spouse should throw at you and say, this is how I want to be treated. They don't need to read that. You need to read that. They should be reading Prodependence or something that makes them feel better about themselves. I worry when partners are sitting and we're trying to do our stuff, because what you really need to do is get support for yourselves. And also you need to see that we are motivated to do this work. But anyway, what's wrong with this, Tammy, for me is there's so much I don't hear. I'm going to 12-step meetings, and my sponsor said, and I've been going to 3 online meetings a week, and I'm in a therapy group, and that's what I worry about, because nothing will progress when your spouse is not. That's a double negative. Things will progress when your spouse starts to see you taking action on the things you need to do, not just in terms of how do I apologize to her, how do I say the right things. That's what Doghouse is about. It's about the person who is on the road to getting better, and they need to figure out how to make it right for their partner. If you are kind of just feeling good that you're not doing it and you're in therapy, or maybe only doing it occasionally, or then you are not the person who should be reading out of the doghouse. In fact, you should not be reading it, because what you're saying is, I want to make everything right with my spouse and learn all the tricks of learning how to make it right, and that will help me keep doing what I was doing. So what I feel stuck means I feel stuck in the relationship, and I sin that means I feel stuck because I don't know how to make it better. And my answer to you is, stop trying. Stop worrying about what she or he is feeling and what they are and aren't doing for you or with you. Let them have their feelings. We have support groups for betrayed spouses. Tammy will type in the thing how to get there. And what she can do is sit with other women or other people who have been through what she's been through and get support and nurturing for herself. One of the things that addicts struggle with, I think, is that we see how much we've hurt you, and we want to rush over and make it better, not just because we want to feel better about ourselves, but sometimes we genuinely see you in pain. And regardless of our knowledge of having caused it or not, when you love someone in pain and you're used to being the person who goes over and makes them feel better, it is actually hard for us to try to make you feel better because you don't want anything from us, and rightfully so. We can't make you better in these circumstances, and you can't fix our problem. When D-Day comes, it is time for us to turn to our own resources so that we can come back together healthier and ready to work. But I don't hear, and I think you'd agree, Tammy, unless this person left a whole lot of stuff out, that they're doing enough for their own recovery to make their spouse feel safe, no less, yeah. So you have thoughts at all?
I always have thoughts. What I hear
I'm
is,
sorry about this.
no, on this particular thing, no, it's like, I'm with you. I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad you're here. And hopefully you're attending the Addict drop-in groups on this site and all the other resources, but I don't hear enough. It's not, if you're only, I say this all the time to people who call, if you're only going to go to a 50-minute session with a therapist once a week, and addiction is a 24/7, okay, maybe when I'm sleeping, not so much, but it's not enough. If you are actively working on your recovery with the same energy you did for your addiction, you'll be good. So and if you're thinking about acting out and then thinking about when you acted out and planning the next one, there's hours every day, so converting that to doing good things for your recovery, and that's when spouses start going, okay, that person is different. I see them, you talk about lying. I hear all the time people say, I can almost tolerate the acting out, but the lying. And so, it's not lying. Dr. Rob has talked about this on this webinar before, so look at the previously recorded, but we talked about, it's, if you say you're going to take out the trash, take out the trash. If you're, do what you say, mean what you say, do it, so there's a lot, but what I really hear is two people that don't have enough support. The support groups for each of you, both of you, and if you need, and if you need a therapist, I can help you find one. Email me. If the program we run is for sex addiction, intimacy disorders. Our clinical director says, tell the truth and tell it faster. Because addicts lie, so there is help.
Mostly to themselves, by the way.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I'm doing great. Okay. Next question. I've been going to 12-step meetings for a few months. I've never been a religious or spiritual person. I like the meetings, but I'm having trouble with understanding the higher power concept. Do you have any advice that can help guide me and find the understanding of a higher power? Can I answer this one? Can I start with this?
Can we both answer? You first.
Okay. So Mark Anthony Lord did a whole series on our website.
We say this slower. Mark
Anthony Lord did a whole series about changing your concept of higher power. And so, people get caught in this religious and all of this type of thing, but I will challenge you that your act of addiction was your higher power. You did whatever it told you to do. So it was your higher power, regardless of whether you believe in a higher entity or not. So I love personally the 12th step, which says having had a spiritual awakening. It doesn't talk about God or a certain religious sect or anything else, but that was transformational for me. That was what we are promised as a result of working the 12 steps. It isn't going to make our life perfect. It isn't going to take away the addiction, but we're going to have tools to be able to do things differently. And that has been the most meaningful part of my 12-step journey. So then I'll shut up. And what do you have to add?
Oh, Tammy, you need to say much more, and I take way too much time. But I tell a couple of things real quickly about that. I think to have a belief in God, you have to, and I mean something out there that will take care of me and that I can depend on to take care of me, that sort of larger being, whether or not you believe in a religion, this idea that there's something out there that's omnipotent and all looking after us. I think on some level that has to come from that feeling, that hope, that belief, on some level has to come from having grown up in an environment where you believe that others were going to protect you and take care of you and it was safe and you could rely on them. And that feeling of safety, that I can trust that there's something bigger than me that will be there for me, I think it is makes it easier to think of a larger spiritual kind of experience. I didn't grow up with that. There wasn't a lot of trust and love, but I will tell you where I found God for me. And this is different than what Tammy said. I spent a few years in 12-step programs, and I saw troubled, sick, worried, destroyed people who had destroyed other people. I saw them walk into the rooms of 12-step meetings and not right away, but over time, hold each other's hands, share each other's strength, and heal. And I realized, as I believe today, that when you put, in fact, well, let me say this. In the 12-step programs, they say a meeting takes place where two or more are gathered. And what I say is God is right there whenever two or more people come together with a focus of healing. The body seeks to heal itself in the right circumstances, it will. We seek to heal our hearts and our souls too. But we have to be in the right circumstances to heal. And that means being surrounded with accepting, connecting, and people that will allow us to feel a little sense of something bigger than ourselves. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, next question. I just found out my husband slept with 70 women, sex workers only, during our 17 years together. I am in shock because he told me only 2 times. I don't know what to do. I'm simply in shock. How can he be so cruel? Is he fixable? Oh my God.
Well, that's a lot. Why don't you start well, I can only say one thing. I go to the numbers immediately, which is like 70 women. It's at least 150 a shot. So how much money could that family have had for that woman, I assume, or her kids or whatever? How much money? And then when you take 75 hours or 2 weeks out of your life from your family, plus getting there and going back, where did the money go? Where did the time go? What has this family missed because of this person's obsession? That's what brings up for me. But I know there's more there. Do you want to comment, Tammy?
So I want to honor your pain. And I want to give you hope. Yes, it is the numbers and all of that. Is he very broken? Absolutely. Is there qualified help? Yes, there is. This is exactly what we can help with at Seeking Integrity Treatment Program. So just like Dr. Rob was talking about, what has his addiction cost? And what is it going to cost if he loses you and everything else? Divorce is more than treatment. So if he is to the point where he wants qualified help, that's what we do. Call me tomorrow.
One more thing about this particular this particular question is, I don't know what to do. And here's the thing, I don't think there's anything to do.
Get support for you.
Yes, except, go ahead, say it again, Tammy, you're right.
Get support for you. I put in the chat, groups for partners from a prodependent lens. So there is, you may be too young for this group, but they don't care. Tomorrow, Old Lady Posse, tomorrow morning, there's a group on Wednesday afternoon. There's another group on Thursday morning. There's a group on Sunday night. There's more webinars. There's so many resources on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Please, lean into those.
Free.
Free. Yeah.
So you don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do either. And so one thing that I think you need to get to is that this man, who may have been forever your best friend, the person you turn to, as we do with the people we're married to, who do I check out the most important things in life with? I go to them first, or I go to, he's no longer your friend. He's no longer your best friend. He's no longer the first person you can go to find out anything, because he's the one who hurt and violated you. And I think that's a great loss for all the partners, is that how could you take away my best friend? How could you take away this person that I relied on, and vice versa? So there's a loss of what that person was for you, that it won't be an equivalent, but that you need to get other women to be, which is your support, the people you turn to, the vital parts of your holding on to yourself for now. Do we have time for one more, Tammy?
Well, at least one more. Let's see. So
Oh,
how does
good.
a
Okay.
sex addict know if he is just sober and going through the motions, seeing a CSAT, going to group therapy, has a sponsor and attending SAA meetings 2 years, or actually in recovery? If just sober but truly wants recovery and stuck, what steps does he need to take? At what point is couples therapy recommended?
So this sounds like a question in the beginning that a sex addict wrote, but then it starts to read more and more like a question a partner might have written. So I'm going to ask you to start, Tammy.
I feel like it's from a partner, but we're making this up. So I talk about this often. You know, I believe that there's abstinence and then maybe some sobriety, but recovery is all encompassing. Recovery is all aspects of my life are affected by my recovery. You know, I don't lie about taking out the trash. I don't lie to Rob. I have to be honest in all areas of my life. I have to be, seeking integrity. Now, 2 years is great, but it's also a period of time. But I think partners know when somebody's just
Mm,
going through the motions. Your gut tells you, even if you're being gaslighted and told that, oh, the sky is, well, Rob's sky is yellow and orange. But, if you're being told something, but you're not really seeing that it's different, you're not really seeing that person show up. If you've got kids and it's the lip service to the kids, it's whatever, you're not seeing those real connections. I trust that. Thoughts?
well, I agree with you, Tammy. I do think to a certain degree for the partners, it is, what are you feeling isn't right, because it usually isn't, and how can I trust that and take an action on that? But there's something else in this question, which I hear also, which is a desire to put a period at the end of the sentence.
Mhm.
Which every partner wants to do. It's like, well, how will I know when it's okay? How will I know when he's really committed and really won't do this versus he's just doing this to keep me happy, or, whatever it is. And you may not know that for a long period of time. The reestablishment of trust is the primary thing that couples have to do if they're going to stay together, because it wasn't the sex, it wasn't the affair, it wasn't the sex worker, it was the lying that destroys the relationship. And so that's what has to be the focus of your healing. If your spouse is doing things, the addict, that leaves you not trustful, then you've got to ask, you've got to find out. We can go back a little bit. If you feel really mistrustful, you can you can check his GPS on his phone. You can ask him to check in with you 2 times a day. There's nothing wrong with that. But at 2 years out, there has to come a point where either you see enough improvement to feel safe, or what you're looking for is more than is possible to get. Um, so many things. But I would just encourage you to, and by the way, there's one more thing I want to say about this. Sometimes relationships aren't great for a really long time. Sometimes relationships aren't great. And what you want back and want to see happen to that relationship may never have really been there in the first place. So be careful when you ask for it, when you say, I want to regain the intimacy, regain the connection. Maybe it's not what you thought it was in the first place. Well, you're nodding your head, Tammy. So I'm just wondering
No,
if you're nodding your head.
I agree that it was often it was a facade, and so what I see
Right.
in recovery is that people
Mm,
are real and honest, and they aren't perfect, and they aren't pretending to be perfect. But like you were talking about, the 3s and 4s and all of that. It's like, but if I'm real and I'm showing you who I really am, that's way more meaningful than I'm a 10, which I'm not. But like I don't want you to think you like me based on this facade that I'm putting, because then you don't really know me, and I know that if you really did know me, you wouldn't value me.
and that's the opposite of intimacy. Intimacy is being known, and my revealing myself to you emotionally, and watching how you accept that. And if you accept that, I feel closer to you. I mean, that's what it's all about.
This one we have to answer. Hi, Dr. Robin, Tammy. I'm 28 and I've never been on a date. Sometimes I feel like I can't start dating until I'm a catch. is this wrong mentally? Or is this the wrong mentality? I'm going to wait till I'm a catch before I ever start dating.
Well, I mean, I have a doctory question, and then I'd love you to answer the more emotional part. Part of my question would be, are you sexual with yourself? Do you have a sexual life? Do you allow yourself to enjoy sex or fantasy around whoever it is you might date? Is there something going on inside of you that is allowing an emotional and sexual connection to this, even if it's not happening? Because I certainly know people who they're not having sex, they're not thinking about it, they're just completely shut it out. So I'd be curious about that, because there is a defined, it's like sexual orientation called asexuality. And there are people who are very, very comfortable simply not being sexual. That's just how they are. They're fine with it. It doesn't matter what it comes from, whether it's who they are, trauma, whatever, but they're just not interested. And so, what does dating mean to someone who doesn't really want to or enjoy sex? So there are lots of questions there that you're not, that I don't know about. But I would ask, do you allow yourself pleasure and fantasy around the goal you have, even if you're not achieving it? Tammy, I know you're going to have a very different answer, and that's why I love doing this with you.
And I am going to look at it from the emotional standpoint. I was like, if I waited dating is, it takes practice. You're going to do it badly at first, and that's okay. You can't, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, you're looking to have the college level, and be able to write a dissertation on something, and you're in kindergarten. You just can't do it. So you can't be the catch. And quite frankly, who wants to be? I want to be the catch for the person who I want to be with, who resonates with me. Like you were talking about, that's the person I want to catch, not some unattainable, celebrity type.
It is a great point, Tammy. Who catch for who? Because you may walk down the street and 100 people, you may be, not that your body may not be in the right place. You may be a mess. How you're walking down the street and someone says, I love a woman who's really looking casual. So how do you know what a catch is? To me, what you're saying is I need to be everything I feel like I need to be so that I will be immediately have people attracted to me and I won't get abandoned. So in some sense, it feels like a little bit of a sense of control. How can I be what I think they will want so that I don't have to worry about being rejected or unwanted, is what it sort of feels like to me. Is that helpful?
Yes, it's very helpful. So, and we are out of time. So join Dr. Rob again on Friday night on www.intherooms.com, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And join us back here again on Monday night. But I'm going to be subbing in this week. So you'll see me with Dr. David, and I'm going to be on with John Taylor. So.
And I want to say one more thing. We have a podcast. If you've not listened to it, it is free. All our resources. It's called Sex, Love, and Addiction. Sex, Love, and Addiction. We have over 250,000 people who have downloaded a show to listen to. This is not light vanity podcast. This is serious professionals from all over the world giving information, exchanging information with me about the issues we treat. Although, Tammy, I have to tell you one of my criticisms I got this week, and boy, are they right. So someone wrote me about the podcast, and they said, I'm giving you 4 stars because this is the best podcast I've ever heard. It helps my family, all that. But could you talk less and ask more of your guests? And I thought, oh my goodness, I have way too much to say everywhere. But they still liked it. So I'm going to say less and ask more.
I actually saw that, and I did chuckle with that, but but I told
you don't know me at all, do you? You would never think.
It was so funny, but I said, I was on the in the rooms group with you on Saturday, and like I'm leaning into the screen because as much as I know you, as much as I know these topics and stuff like that, it's always interesting to me, and something comes up that I go, oh, I hadn't thought of that way. So there's always more for me to learn. I'm grateful that I get to tag along with you and learn from you.
And likewise. And likewise, they love you too.
So thank you, everybody.
Have a great evening. Thanks for your patience.